you imagine being called the biggest Man United talent since Ryan Giggs, or the most gifted young kid I've ever seen? Yes, those statements will make any footballer proud of himself. But how would you react if we told you that this player hasn't even reached 10% of his potential? His name is Ravel Morrison.
When Ravel was 13, I remember categorically Sir Alex Ferguson saying that this was the biggest talent he'd seen at the club since Ryan Giggs.
He runs with the ball, he just runs with it, and he's almost looking at me while he's running with the ball.
Well, all this is probably the least that could be said about the Man United product. He had a Neymar style of play and an Eden Hazard level of potential. But due to various circumstances, he fell into the pit of oblivion. And today we're going to explore the reasons why he couldn't make it to the top of the game. Indeed, Ravel Morrison was a generational talent and arguably the most wasted prospect the footballing world has ever seen. When we talk about high potential players like guys from the past like Messi, Ronaldo or Neymar, or some current ones like Pedri or Bellingham, we see them as talents who will dominate the game for years to come. Well, Ravel would have been in that group of players had he fulfilled even 70% of his potential, but in the end, when such a talent only makes 18 Premier League appearances in the span of 14 years and tries his luck with a total of 13 teams, you kind of wonder how this is possible. Before we answer that very question, we need to put some context around it so that you understand the magnitude of Ravel Morrison's case. Born in the small Manchester suburb of Wythenshawe in February 1993, Morrison had a very difficult childhood. He lived with his grandparents in Denton, Greater Manchester, while his mother raised his younger brothers in another part of the city. Nevertheless, she played an active role in his development as a man and a footballer. When it comes to his father, there is no information about what happened to him, but it is assumed that Ravel was raised mainly by his mother and grandparents. He began his youth career with local side Fletcher Moss Rangers before being scouted by Man United's academy at the age of 8. He went through all of youth ranks with the Red Devils and crossed paths with the likes of Paul Pogba and Jesse Lingard, with whom he won the 2011 Youth Cup, scoring twice in the final at Old Trafford. And to put Ravel's potential at that age into perspective, here is what Sir Alex Ferguson and scout Phil Brogan had to say about him. "This was the best player I have seen at that age. The best since Ryan Giggs," were Sir Alex's first public words after seeing what Ravel was doing with the ball. On the other hand, the man who brought him into the Red Devils said, "I've never seen anything like Ravel. I had this surge of excitement the moment I saw him. I knew I had found a boy. He was incredible, and I knew he could go all the way. He was better than Pogba." And indeed, Ravel had a clear horizon ahead of him. All he had to do was take his chances. Morrison made his debut in 2010, coming on as a substitute in a 3-2 League Cup win over Wolves. He didn't manage to score, but one thing was clear on that October night. The entire Man United community was hopeful that they had found their new prodigy, the man who could mark a new era for the Red Devils. And mentioning that he had the whole horizon in front of him, that was a fact. At the time, Man United's midfield was in need of a generational change, with 30-year-old Michael Carrick, 37-year-old Paul Scholes, and 38-year-old Ryan Giggs leading the charge. So Ravel had every opportunity to make his mark. But this is where his downfall began. Having spent almost 20 years of his life without a father figure, it began to take its toll. Like any teenager, he loved to hang around on bikes, wear Nikes and dark clothes. But things started to get out of hand when Ravel and his friends committed a robbery, threatening a 15-year-old boy, holding him at knife point and stealing a pair of trainers and a music system. About 3 months after his Man United debut, Ravel pleaded guilty and was given a 12-month referral order and had to pay £1,445 in costs and compensation. In the months that followed, he was involved in further controversies, including posting a homophobic threat on Twitter and being convicted of criminal damage for throwing his girlfriend's mobile phone out of a window. Now, as you might have guessed, all these incidents can be a distraction for any professional athlete. But now add to Ravel Morrison's situation the fact that he suffered from attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or simply ADHD. This is a disorder that can make it difficult to pay attention, control impulsive behavior, or act without thinking. In principle, the medical world has developed drugs that can treat ADHD, but Ravel Morrison's case was more specific. As an athlete, he was not allowed to take this prescribed medication to avoid a possible ban for violating doping rules. Unfortunately for Ravel Morrison, he didn't make a single Premier League appearance for Manchester United, with all 3 of his games coming in the League Cup. It was clear that something was going gravely wrong for him because, on top of his serious health and legal problems, he always had that superstar mentality, where he thought he would succeed in football with minimum effort. Proof of this was the fact that he often missed training sessions and was late for the matches. And then, more than a year after his first team debut, Alex Ferguson and his staff decided it was in the best interests for all to part ways with the young talent. At the time, West Ham with Sam Allardyce at the helm were the most insistent on making it happen, and Ravel moved to the Championship side for around £600,000. However, Morrison made just one appearance for West Ham in the second half of the 2011-12 season, and Allardyce decided to send him out on loan for the next campaign. Birmingham was the chosen team for his future, and Ravel was left trying to resurrect his career in the Championship for a second successive season. Fortunately for him, the next 2 years were positive. He made a total of 30 appearances for Birmingham in 2012-13 and 21 in the first half of 2013-14 for West Ham, scoring 8 times. And if the stats don't impress you, well, it is a fact that Ravel has finally managed to show why he was once dubbed the most impressive youngster in the Man United academy. His goal in the 3-0 win over Tottenham at White Hart Lane will never be forgotten. He took the ball from the halfway line, dribbled through the Spurs defence and scored. It was also voted the team's best goal of the season. Everything seemed to have changed for the better in Ravel Morrison's attitude and mentality. He was never late for training, always trying to improve and learn from the more experienced guys like Mark Noble and Kevin Nolan. It seemed his career was back on track. There was even a time when Allardyce praised Morrison for the positive changes he had made. When we took him, Sir Alex told me, "I hope you can sort him out because if you can, you're going to have a top-class player in your hands." But I'm not sure I've sorted him out. I think he sorted himself out and has begun to enjoy his football. Yes, those were some lovely words from Big Sam, but it was he who dragged Ravel back down to the deep. Needless to say, Morrison was once again having discipline problems, and this was beginning to worry Allardyce, who decided to send him out on loan. This time to Queen's Park Rangers. It was clear that the relationship between the two had completely broken down, and for a long time the footballing public wondered what was going on. Why was a player of his quality, who was playing some excellent football, now being dropped from the starting 11 and even sent out on loan to the Championship? Well, here's the answer. Sam Allardyce was putting pressure on Ravel to sack his current agent and sign one that Allardyce was familiar with. Well, as you can imagine, Morrison refused, and Big Sam immediately put him on the blacklist. From then on, Morrison endured a series of disappointing and even nightmarish spells, both in England and abroad. In the second half of the 2013-14 season, Morrison was instrumental in QPR's promotion to the Prem, but he returned to West Ham and was sent back to the Championship in the winter of 2015, this time to Cardiff. After making just 9 appearances in the whole of the 2014-15 season, Morrison finally put an end to his nightmares in England and moved to the 6th destination of his career, Lazio in Italy. Yes, Morrison can definitely be described as a little crazy and irresponsible when it comes to his work ethic, and that's exactly what Lazio director Iglitare said about him in October 2015. That he has undoubted quality and is definitely world class, as well as being a little mad. Some English media have also suggested that with a more modest approach, he could actually become a favourite of the Lazio fans, who in the past have been crazy about other madmen like Paolo Di Canio and compatriot Paul Gascoigne. Well, a new club for him, a new disappointing experience. In fact, he had some positive moments during pre-season, reportedly even sending the fans into ecstasy. However, Morrison's inability to adapt to his new team, his minimal efforts to do so, as well as the language barrier, signalled the end of his time at Lazio, and it would prove to be his last spell at a top club. In the 8 years that followed, Morrison was owned by 5 different teams and was loaned out to 3 other clubs: QPR again, Atlas in Mexico, Östersund in Sweden, Sheffield United, Middlesbrough, ADO Den Haag, Derby County, and now the MLS side, DC United, where he has not made a single appearance in the last 2 years. Yes, there's no point in deluding ourselves that Morrison has any chance of returning to the big-time football, even though he's now 31. In fact, the main battle in his living was at a much higher level than simply being an excellent footballer. Yes, he failed to live up to his star potential, but did he achieve something far more valuable, ridding himself of the bad habits and living a dignified life? And that's exactly what Man United legend Gary Neville said in an interview in 2020. The most important thing for Ravel Morrison is that he has the stability in his life right now to be able to go and enjoy the rest of his next 30, 40, 50 years of his life. Ravel Morrison's story can be a lesson to many of us, and everyone can learn something from it. For much of his career, he was judged to be ungrateful for the fate that had blessed him with incredible talent, or for not trying to improve his situation and take his career to the next level. Yes, there may be some truth in such criticism, but it is also a fact that Morrison will go down in history as one of the greatest victims of circumstance. the man who could have ruled the world but wasn't lucky enough to do so. If you liked today's video, you can like and share your opinion in the comment section. What could Morrison have done better? Can you think of another case like this? Also, don't forget to subscribe and ring the notifications button, as well as check out some of our latest videos. Now, again, as usual, take care and see you on the pitch.